Hi everyone, Tom Wolf here, and in this video I'll be showing you how I created the preset Interplanetary that was included free in the Synth Vault in April 22. Let's have a look at how to create that. So let's start with engine 1, and in engine 1 we're using the wavetable engine, and we're using this wavetable called Go-Go, which is one of the factory wavetables included in Pigments. As you can see, it's kind of a sine wave here really, and we've got the position set to 0.060, so it's just off the start of that wavetable. We're not using any frequency mod, phase mod or anything like that yet. And then we've also got our VCA envelope set so that we get a kind of quite plucky sort of sound. So we've got the attack set to about 13 milliseconds there, so that just removes the initial kind of attack. We've got the decay set to 264 milliseconds. We've got the release set to 116. So we get this very soft sine wave kind of plucky sound there. So let's have a look at engine 2. So we'll come over here, and as you can see, we've also got this set to wavetable, and we've got it set to the basic waveform, which is literally the bread and butter waveform in Pigments. You can see we've got the position set to just over halfway, which is giving us a sort of blend somewhere between a triangle wave and a sawtooth wave. Again, we're not using any kind of frequency mod or phase mod here, and that sounds like this. So it kind of sounds like a soft sawtooth wave. We're then going to add unison to this. So we're running unison in the super mode. We've got detune set to 1.85%, mix set to about halfway, and stereo all the way up, so we get a nice wide sound there. This is also turned down slightly against engine 1. So you'll see in engine 1 we have the volume set to 5 dB, and we've got the volume here set to just under 1 dB, 1.64, minus 1.64 dB that is. So together they sound like this. So we're getting quite a lot of that kind of sawtooth. But then this kind of sine wave in engine 1 is actually adding this kind of softness underneath. So let's turn on our sequencer, because obviously that is the main part of this sound. So you can see we've got it set to sequencer. The rate is synced to 16th notes, and we've got it kind of drawn in with a chromatic scale here. So you can see I've drawn the notes in already. We've got it set so we've got 8 notes in this sequence. The notes are sequenced in, and we're also using our octave control so that this is sweeping across 3 octaves. And then we've also just got a tiny little bit of glide here as well, so that's set to 9 milliseconds. It's just giving us a very small amount of glide between those notes, but it's definitely audible there. We'll then come into filter 1, and if we switch on filter 1, we've got it set to a multi-mode, and it's set to low pass 24. Now we've got the cutoff set to 1312, and there's no resonance on that. Now at the moment you can see this is really kind of stunted, and that's because we've got some modulation that is happening here as well. So firstly, we're going to modulate it with our envelope 2. So switch that on and come over to envelope 2, you can see we've got a very quick decay time on this, so 704 milliseconds. It's giving us a really nice kind of plucky sound on that. So that's taking a lot out of that kind of triangle sawtooth wave there. However, we're then going to modulate this further so that it sweeps with our sequencer. So to do that, we're using function 1. And you can see we've essentially got function 1 set up to a sawtooth wave here. So it's synced to a half note, okay? We've got it set into LFO mode, and it is, as you can see, looping. The gate source is the sequence start. So that means as soon as I press a note and trigger that sequence, it's going to start cycling from the start. So this is basically going to create a kind of sweeping sound. And we've got this attached to our filter 1 cutoff. So we'll switch that on. So we're now sweeping it so that with our top notes in the sequence, where we've got the octave set quite high, as it starts sweeping down, we're going to get a slightly brighter sound, and then it's going to darken as we get to the end of our sequence where we've got our lower notes as well. We're also going to use function 1 to control our wavetable position as well. So I'll switch that on. You can see we've got it set to 0.94, so it's sweeping pretty much all of our wavetable. So we're now going to start getting slightly brighter sounds at the start from engine 1. So if we remove that, so again, we're getting a much more kind of bright, playful sound at the start of our sequence by synchronizing our sequence with this function here, which is causing it to sweep throughout that sequence. We're then also using filter 2, so let's put that on, and you'll see we've got it in multi-mode again, and we're using the high pass 24. Our cutoff is, as I say, being swept by our function engine again. So if I switch that on, you can see we're going to be removing the low end from those kind of top notes at the start of our sequence and sweeping down so that we're kind of getting almost like a band pass between the two here. And they are running in series here. So we have got filter 1 going into filter 2. So that means, yeah, we're getting this kind of band passing sound across the two filters. We've also got quite a lot of resonance on this high pass filter here as well. That's set to 0.440. So that is going to kind of crisp up that low end. So yeah, we're getting this kind of squelchy sound at the start with our resonance, and as it sweeps down, it's kind of going from this kind of thin toppy bit into this darker bit, and it's sweeping through the sequenced melody that's happening there. So that's it for the actual sound itself. We'll now have a look at the effects. So let's come over to our effects section. So we've got the effects running in series, so we're going from FXA into FXB. A lot of these are actually being controlled by the macros. I won't go into too much depth about what is in the macros for this one, but as you can see, we've got a flanger for the macros, and we've got some distortion. So that is where our flanger and distortion come in the effects here. And with these macros off, we're not actually going to be getting any of that effect. So we are going to be getting some chorus, so let's switch that on. So we've got a little bit of depth there, 1 millisecond. The rate is quite slow, 0.580 hertz. We've got it set to just the one voice. Feedback is up a little bit, and the delay is about 13 milliseconds. And then we've got our dry wet signal set to 34% there. So that is just kind of warming it up, thickening the sound up a little bit there. And then we're coming into a delay. So the delay is synced to dotted eighth notes. It's set to ping pong, so we get a really nice kind of stereo image there. We've not got too much kind of frequency filtering happening here. We've also got the feedback set quite long, so that's set to just under 0.6. And then we've got the dry wet mix set to 32%. So we start to get this kind of playful, spacey sound by adding the delay in, which is a really nice, almost kind of psychedelic ambient effect that's happening there. And then lastly, we're going to look at our effects aux as well. So come over to our effects aux and we'll switch that on. So we'll start off with the delay. So this is here because in Pigments, the signal that feeds into FXA and FXB doesn't feed into the aux. Into the aux, you actually get the dry signal straight from the synth engine. So any effects that you apply to FXA and FXB, you don't get in the auxiliary. Now, of course, I wanted to add that delay into my reverb, so I'm still getting some of that signal through my delay as well as the dry signal. So what I have to do essentially is copy the same instance of the delay from FXA into the auxiliary. So if I come over here, you just click that and you can click copy effects, and then you can copy it to whatever block in your effects chain that you want. So the delay settings on our aux are exactly the same. We've still got the dotted eighth, we've still got quite a long feedback here, and we've got the dry wet mix set to just over 30%. This then runs into a flanger, which again is not being used because that is being controlled by one of our macros, so I'll leave that switched off. And then it's coming into a reverb. Now the reverb obviously is set to 100% wet, so that in our auxiliary we just have that wet reverb signal. We've got the decay set quite high, so that's set to 0.8 there. A bit of damping, we've got it set to 0.32, a bit of filtering, stereo width all the way up, pre-delay set to 20 milliseconds, and the size is turned up to 1.29 as well. So we've also got our send turned up to minus 11.6 dB there. And as you can see, our return is turned all the way down, but that is because we have got macro controls over this. So macro 4 is assigned to the reverb level there. So with the macro turned up, we are getting the reverb return. So let's have a listen. So if we turn that down, so we're now getting this really lovely, spacious reverb, and between the delay and the reverb, it just has this kind of otherworldly atmospheric effect, which is just a beautiful kind of ambient thing. And with this really kind of light and playful arpeggiated sequence, it just works really nicely together. So that was how I created the preset Interplanetary. If you are a Pigments user and you'd like to download some free presets, then head to synthvault.net. Every single month you'll be able to download free presets for Pigments and a bunch of other synths as well. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding the bell to be notified about my next video. Until next time, take care.